churches have such a powerful voice in terms of the community, and they should actually use that voice to amplify the ethical use of politics.
You can't force religion onto people, so you have to pick and choose the right values that will align with the broader South Africa.
Seven p.m. Sunday night. Happy Easter, everyone. It's Topical starts right now. A very good evening to you, South Africa, and those watching around the world. My name is Blaine Herman, and this is It's Topical. Our digital audience with us tonight. They will weigh in terms of some of the burning questions they have for our guest in a short while. Easter, a time to reflect, a time to assess. The passion of Christ, representing love and sacrifice for humanity. It's victory over sin and death. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit. Often a reflection during Holy Week, the concept of love and sacrifice, giving for the betterment of community. Look, these are common threads that run through many religions. Many of us look up to an ideal, the epitome, that which is greater than all. But how close to this ideal do we need to be as mere human beings in order to be effective in shaping this democracy? Freedom Month. It also allows us to reflect and to assess as a nation. It offers South Africans a chance to recognize the achievements made since 1994. But it's also a chance to assess the problems that still prevail. Children being raped, murder, violence in some shape or form. It tends to dominate news headlines. Is there a need to reset our moral compass? How do we get back to the concept of love and sacrifice for humanity, given the current state of play? The argument being it's not about perfection, right? Because a lack of perfection tends to be discouraging. It's about progress. How do we get to that better place, as we always talk about, as a collective? It leads us to the question of the week, and we ask you, as South Africa grapples with a myriad of social ills, how should religion or religious institutions lead the fight beyond this Easter, beyond Freedom Month? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Let us know at SABC News_TV. Perspective coming up. Off the bat, I want to hear your thoughts, your views on this. Our regular word on the street feature, where we took to various streets in Gauteng, seeking diverse insights and perspective on this topic. And this is what you had to say. Watch.
I feel like churches have such a powerful voice in terms of the community, and they should actually use that voice to amplify the ethical use of politics. In terms of corruption, that needs to be addressed.
Churches are a good place of us having a moral ground, good core for morality and ethics. So I think if we can promote and have someone that could step in and promote that in leadership as well, I think that to a certain extent there can be a difference.
South Africa's lost its moral campus. Crime is out of hand. There are really, really terrible things happening in South Africa, and we need to reposition ourselves and maybe go back to church.
And I feel like the government is the one that is showing its back to the church, because these are two institutions that should be working hand in hand to better people's lives. But then you find the church being the one that's housing homeless people, feeding homeless people, whereas politics and the government just don't care.
You can't force religion onto people, so you have to pick and choose the right values that will align with the broader South Africa.
What a church can basically do is firstly get more involved within government, have more, like chairs within government so that they can, liaise with government more on a personal level, because I think where the church is right now, in terms of influence or in terms of having a voice within government, I think there's a discrepancy there, there's inconsistency right there.
We appreciate your thoughts on this matter. As always, that's what It's Topical is all about, where you have your say. Moral regeneration. What does that mean to you? How does it help society weed out social ills? I was reading a recent statement from the South African Council of Churches saying that there's a deep call from the church leaders to confront the woundedness of South Africa's people and address the resurgence of racism, sexism, tribalism, and xenophobia, among other issues, which pose a serious threat to our common future. What do you think has given rise to this resurgence? Given the spate of rape, sexual assault in this country, have we lost? That's the question. It's a pertinent one. Have we lost our moral compass as a nation? Perspective, and more importantly, solutions. Next. Welcome back. You're watching It's Topical. Freedom Month, Easter. Question: how can we advance our freedoms that we have in South Africa, and what role can religious leaders, activists, and other role players play in this endeavor? Crime, insecurity in this country, to what extent does it impair our freedoms? Does the solution lie in moral regeneration? What does that mean to you? It brings us to the umbrella question of the week. We're asking you, as South Africa grapples with a myriad of social ills, how should religious institutions lead the fight beyond this Easter and Freedom Month? We've gathered a number of guests to give us their perspectives, but we'd love to hear yours as well at SABC News_TV. In studio with me is Seth Mazibuko, anti-apartheid activist, Moral Regeneration Movement COO. Thank you very much indeed, sir, for your time. We've got Reverend Dr Thembelani Jentile, a member of the South African Council of Churches National Executive Committee. On our virtual platform, we also have Mr. George Mahlangu, who is the Deputy Chairperson of the CRL Rights Commission, and Patrick Godana from Sonke Gender Justice, joining us as well. Thank you very much indeed. Our digital audience with us as well. Please, if you have any questions for our guests, raise your virtual hand. I'll do my very best, as always, to get you on the program, get your perspective. Maybe I can start with you, Mr. Mazibuko. As you reflect over the 3 decades of our democracy, moral regeneration, what does that mean precisely, and how can it play a part in finding solutions to the problems we face as a country?
Maybe one should even start by having to say, how do we understand moral or ethical issues? Yeah. Number one, I think let's take up an issue and a definition from Professor Kelly, who says it is a set of rights and wrongs that people agree upon, that these are rights and wrongs. Park that point. Nelson Mandela in 1997 speaks of social ills. He lists them. And, it's crimes. Then that gives us what was wrong when he then called for the RDP of the soul. Have we done that as South Africans in the 30 years? I'll give you a big no. We have instead seen even those who are supposed to be in the pulpit being in prison, those who are supposed to be in church being in court. Does that give us any highest of moral compass? I'll be the first to say no. And then I'll be the first to say we have not yet, as this country, sat down to agree on what is wrong and what is right. Maybe sometimes as families we do, but we have never taken that. Actually, our freedom has turned, our democracy has become very much lawless.
Right. It's an important point, Dr. Jentile, because some might be watching this and saying, this topic of morals and regeneration, it's so abstract. We need tangibles now. But maybe we need to pull back the curtain a bit, peel the onion a bit, and get back to why we act in a certain way. Do you find it helpful to go back to understanding what is right and wrong?
You know, I think those who have been during the struggles, like Bondate Seth and others, they will tell you that when they were diagnosing what could be the problem, they spoke of the structures that need to transform. And people thought that you transform structures automatically, you will have proper governance and you'll have a viable country and all that. Now we tend to realize that it's more than just structures. It's a matter of the heart. It's a matter of a personal transformation, you know, doing unto others as you want them to do unto you.
Yes.
It's just deeper than taking care of the structures of the country and putting things in order. I mean, you can have powerful structures and have, you know, good governance, but if the hearts of the people are not regenerated and transformed, I mean, there's nothing you can do. Right now, we're talking about churches. You have pastors who are abusing kids and all that, and people are saying, let churches be regulated and all that. And I said, you know what, the most regulated church, which is the Catholic Church, is still struggling with ministers who are abusive. So regulation is not going to help us. It's a matter of the heart. And I think all of our past leaders, the ones that Seth has just mentioned, they were really saying to us, guys, as individuals in this nation, we need to look at ourselves.
Right. There is a need for religious leaders to speak up, have a louder voice. But in order for that to happen, or in order for religious leaders to be effective, they need to have their own house in order, as you mentioned. It brings me to George Mahlangu, CRL Rights Commission. They have established a Section 22 committee for the Christian sector, George, aimed at probing alleged religious transgressions in churches. What prompted this?
Thank you very much, and good evening to you and your panelists, and wish all Christians a blessed Easter period. Thank you for having us. I think what prompted us is the report on the commercialization of religion that we as the Commission, in our strategic planning session, we felt that it is important that something is done about this scourge in transgressions by religious leaders. I think often what you will find is those that are critical of our approach would attribute or say that we are actually trying to regulate religion. It is not to regulate religion. This committee is meant to look at what are these issues that keep on coming as a result of religious leaders that are transgressing not only the laws of the country, but also the sacredness and the spirituality that believers seek when they go to churches.
So what are we talking about here, George? To what extent is there commercialization of religion and the abuse of people's belief systems?
It is very rife. I think Dr. Seth as well as Dr. Jentile have just alluded to some of the challenges that we face. But we can look right across the current issues that are on the table. the Omotoso case, for instance, the Reverend Zondo, the Bushiri case, you can see that these issues keep on coming up. And as the Commission, we continuously receive complaints of abuses by religious leaders. And as a result, this Section 22 committee will look holistically into these issues, where they would then provide a report that will make recommendations for a legal or a legislated framework aimed at promoting the peer review mechanisms in the religious sector.
Seth Mazibuko, it's important to have the religious community, and I'm not only talking about Christianity, I'm talking about all religion, to advocate in terms of moral regeneration. But if the message or the messenger is being muddled up or embroiled in controversy and alleged transgressions, the message doesn't land. We don't trust. What is your organization doing in order to smooth out these issues and get the right message across?
Maybe I'll be the first to say our organization, Moral Regeneration Movement, still has a big task before us. And particularly post, 1994. If you were to sit down, I mean, the very outcry by Mandela of the RDP, of the soul, touches on this, that you've got all these RDP as a program, not now as only houses. Because all the time when you think RDP, think of the house. But Mandela still questioned our moral campus. And let me take this further and say, when you have not only the church leaders being unethical, but you also have politicians that we look up to being unethical. So we are just a fruit salad or a mixed vegetables of unethical leaders. We need, as a country, to start sorting out, removing, cabbage, removing, potatoes, and have a vegetable. Clean it out. And the call, and I hope the church will do so over this weekend and this Good Friday. I hope it will be the call that says, let's start with our own. Let's start with the 12 disciples. Let's start with them, as they are the ones now who are going to see Christ being killed. Let's just start with us, cleaning ourselves as we'll be having the Last Supper, Mfundisi. When we're having that Last Supper, unfortunately, I'm not a Mfundisi. But when we are sitting down and having this Last Supper, I'm challenging all our leaders and our the men of the cloth and the women of the cloth. Please, have that supper with Jesus Christ, but please, don't eat what other people out there you have stolen from them.
Right. Reverend Doctor, I'll come back to you. I know George Mahlangu is tight on time, so I just want to get his thoughts.
No problem.
The pushback, Mr. Mahlangu, that you're getting from certain quarters in your endeavor to get the Section 22 committee off the ground, established and effective. What is it, and why do you think it's so?
I think there is a deliberate and concerted effort to misinformation about this Section 22 committee. And we say as the CRL that we are establishing it to be led by religious leaders across the different umbrella bodies within the Christian sector. It is them that will come up with these strategies, that will develop these recommendations. As the CRL Rights Commission, all that we seek to do is to provide an enabling environment for these religious leaders to do the work that they need to do. You must remember it is important also for us as part of our mandate to protect the religious believers. So we will only be playing the secretariat role, and it is in that context that I say that it is the religious leaders themselves that will lead this process and advise the CRL as well as make recommendations to the country.
Yeah.
So in that context, we have since asked Reverend Professor Musatlulu to chair this committee for us, and we look forward to introducing the other members of this committee after the Easter period, and they will start in earnest with the work that they do. And we hope that those that are pushing back will soon realize that this is not about the regulation of regulation, but it is about a mechanism that, by the way, is applicable to every profession or sector in the country, that you account somewhere. As a journalist, you account elsewhere. As a medical doctor, you account for your conduct elsewhere. So it is in that context that we want this Section 22 to come up with those recommendations for us.
We'll keep a close eye on how this develops. George Mahlangu, thank you very much indeed for your time. I know you press for time, but I appreciate you giving us your input on this. George Mahlangu there from the CRL Rights Commission. Reverend Dr Jentile, is the SACC in favor of such a committee in order to weed out or expose certain allegations that are impugning the work of church?
One of the things that ACCC has been praying for and acting on after we have done our See, Judge, Act theory and work, one of the things is the anchoring of democracy. We want to support any structure, and we are going to support any structure that seeks to, bring this wholeness in our societies and peace in our societies. So we'll definitely work with the CRL if they need our help, and our churches are open to investigations or whatever is happening. We are really not against it.
Yeah.
However, we want to say to CRL that they must consult as widely as they can and not just use one section of the Christian faith. And even one faith at that matter. I think you can include other faiths and other religions in the entire thing, But I know right now all eyes are on the Christian faith because the cases that are being magnified are under the banner of the Christian faith.
Patrick, let me bring you in. Patrick is from the Sonke Gender Justice. The allegations, the reports, the cases of rape, sexual assault, violence against children, it makes your heart bleed. And people assume journalists are numb to these, but we report on these on a daily basis, and it still has that impact. What part or what role do you think religious leaders can play in formulating a coherent strategy in order to eradicate this from our society?
Thank you, Blake, and thanks for having me. Good evening to the listeners and viewers wherever they are. Good evening to the colleagues as well. And happy Easter to everyone. We are in the Holy Week. A very, very important question. The church and the religious or people of faith have got a great role to play in our own societies. And currently, Sonke Gender Justice is actually working alongside with faith leaders across the spectrum, including traditional leaders as well. Because we believe that faith-based organizations are supposedly to be the light and the salt of the world. And unfortunately, at this current point in time, we have lost our salinity as the faith people. We have become people conform to the standards of the world instead of showing the truth and the light. The church is supposed to be the light in the midst of our darkness that confronts us every day in our country. You're right. Young children, hardly days and months that were born, become victims of gender-based violence and sexual violence. Women of our country on continuous basis and every hour in our country are facing high levels of gender-based violence. And therefore, faith leaders need to stand up and begin to challenge, but also take a direction that leads us to a better society. You know, unfortunately, the current state of the church, I am a faith leader myself, ordained in the Lutheran Church, a member church in the SACC. Unfortunately, our leaders, in some instances, are caught up, you know, in the web of government, and they are found wanting most of the time. And the sting of the prophetic voice is no longer there. We are longing for a church that will speak truth to power. And unfortunately, some of our leaders of our society in the faith-based organization are in cahoots with government.
What does that mean, Patrick? What does speaking truth to power in this context mean?
Very true. It is very, very important that we need to define yes as yes, no as no. We've got beautiful laws in our country, and the sad thing, these laws are not being implemented. And we need to hear the voices of the faith leaders to say, implement these laws. Look at the case that we recently had of Prophet Omotoso.
Right.
It's not because that allegations are not far from true, but the nature in which our justice system actually works. And we wanted to hear the voices of the faith leaders to say, we cannot continue in this fashion, because it continues to make our people to have despair and lose hope in our justice system. And for us, in terms of saying justice system must improve and actually start put up their house in order. Right. It's very, very important that we tell the truth to those that are doing injustice to our people. Remember, the time of Holy Week, we should be actually looking at our Commander-in-Chief, Jesus Christ, who at the Last Supper, he washed the feet of his disciples. That servanthood attitude from church leaders must be there, and it's no longer there. Most of our church leaders, they want to be seen as celebs of the day. Thank you.
Reverend Doctor, maybe you can come in, but keep in mind the role of the church, especially as it links to political or politics and political parties. Is the church's voice loud enough in order to rebuke social ills? Do you see a church, for instance, let's say, standing out or speaking out against a political party who is fielding a proven corrupt candidate? Do you see the role of the church saying, hang on, you feel that candidate, we're going to tell our congregants not to vote? Is that your role?
Yeah. You see, I think people need to know how the prophetic movement, the ecumenical movement works today. We have made a conscious decision as the ACCC that if we have a problem with you, Mr. President, before we talk to the nation, we want to sit down with you and let's have a talk. I mean, on the 11th, just the other Friday, we visited the president and his cabinet, and we raised issues: gender-based violence, the GNU not working well, and the issues of corruption. And we even made it clear that we want corruption actually to be declared sin and we included in the stats in this country. Because crime is reported there and then corruption is reported as if corruption is not crime.
Yeah.
Now, that's the first thing. We sit down with you, we talk to you and say, there is this speck in your eye. And you can correct us, but we correct each other. But secondly, what we do, which is very important for us, we need to agree first as the church with all our different doctrines and backgrounds, that this is the thing that we are going to stand for and fight. Now, I think people, what they want to see, I think they want to see us on television every day, to be seen to be working, or on newspapers to be seen to be working. And when we write statements, they start to say, no, this is a church of statements. These people are doing absolutely nothing. We are not going to stop handing out our statements, but also we are not going to stop visiting the corridors of power.
Right.
And start to hold each other accountable. But people don't see those things.
Right. I wonder, Mr. Mazibuko, the dictum of justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. In the terms of, being a church of statements, as the good Reverend Doctor has said. What's the middle ground here? Because you need to be effective, definitely behind the scenes, but also be seen in order to get the message across.
You see, sometimes I get very uncomfortable with this, that we do things in the behind or in the corridors and all that. Then we, the people out there, start saying, what are you actually doing in the corridors? We end up seeing some of these politicians in your churches. Particularly when now they go for...
But they are members.
By point.
They are members.
We will see the deputy president in the next election praying with some of your churches. And then the next thing, all of a sudden, and we see the Bafundisi, the very Bafundis committing these crimes. And then we start saying, what are you doing with your own? Maybe leave the politicians for now. Deal with them in your church, in your pulpit. But what are we doing with something that is glaring? Someone said this, the Omatosa case. I expected the church to be loud, or at least to meet with Omatosa in court and talk to him that we have messed up. You are our own, we have messed up. There is this other thing. There's a new culture of these churches. You know what they're categorized as, charismatic churches and all that. You asked a very good question. There's a question you raised. I've never heard of an imam that makes people eat grass. I've never heard, the Jewish ones? Rabbi, that make people drink petrol. How many of you do that? I'm talking now as the church. How many? And what's sad about this? And this I'm going to say without being racist. It happens to the black child. It happens to the black people. I'm not racist, I'm just direct. And, during apartheid, ministers of religion came out with a very strong document, the Kairos document. And it is the 40th anniversary of the Kairos document as we speak. I'm waiting for theirs.
Right.
What? You're waiting for what?
A Kairos document of the Kairos.
We have it. South Africa we pray for.
Hold your answer. We need to take a quick break. When you come back as well, we're going to get our digital audience, get their take on this matter. Important conversation. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching It's Topical. Let's put up the question, remind you what we're talking about, the theme of tonight's topic. And we're asking you, as South Africa grapples with the myriad of social ills, how should religious institutions lead the fight beyond this Easter and Freedom Month? Before we went to a break, the issue of messaging, the issue of being present was brought up by Mr. Seth Mazibuko, and also being present in the current cases that is filling our headlines or dominating our headlines. Reverend Dr. Jentile, how do you respond?
Well, I think SACC, for example, in the Omotoso case, SACC in the Eastern Cape responded immediately when that case, went out. They issued a statement, and even our national SACC issued a statement on that. And I know that Seth is going to ask me, have you met Amotoso? but we have met with the Minister of Justice, and we said we want that case back in court. And she has actually made us, took us into confidence that we have a team that assists the NPA to deal with this case. And they are also actually, looking at themselves as NPA. And we said, strengthen NPA. Let every rot that has been happening in this case, be dealt with, and then that case be brought back to court. And I think we did well with that, and we were taken into confidence that really something is going to happen.
Right.
So So there are several things. I think what people want to see us doing is to march to courts and do it there in front of, or do...
That's not working. That's not working.
You don't see that as your role?
Marching to court.
No.
We are busy with Twekwe now, with the case Twekwe. And let me tell you, watch that case after 3 weeks or so, 3 months, it won't be there. Marching doesn't assist that much. It simply brings out to the claim.
That is why I'm saying...
What is more important to us is that let us go to the person who has done this wrong, speak to that person. I'm happy
and that's what we are doing.
And I'm happy that our colleagues in the SACC have even taken it up to the ministry.
Yes.
And that's a great one. And I'm saying, however, colleagues, we still have a Mfundisi in your fold. He might not be a member of ANC, but this person is still in the church.
Right. Reverend Dr. Complete your thoughts before we go to...
No. I just wanted to say activism is evolving.
Right.
And some of the things that used to work may not work today.
Right. Let's go to a digital audience. I want to bring in Elijah. Your question to our guests is the volume of voices from religious sector, be it, and I'm talking about all religions, loud enough to make an impact? Your thoughts, Elijah?
Hello, thank you. So I think it's definitely loud enough. In some cases, people might even say it's too loud. I think my question for the panel would just be, how do you see making church and pretty much any religious institution with the values and the ethics that it holds sort of attractive to the younger generation? Because most young people today aren't very keen on going to the church because there's a sort of stereotype towards this. So how do you see people being more involved with the church? How do you see the church being more collaborative with the community to actually not just become a separate entity, but to become a part of everyday life? Not something that's out there, but something that's you want to be a part of. That's my question.
Thanks, Elijah. I'll put that question soon to the panel. Jabalani, let's hear from you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Blaine, and good evening to all the panelists this evening. I think it's very important to understand that religion plays a multifaceted role in society, which encompasses moral guidance, social cohesion, community building, and the provision of meaning and purpose. Unfortunately, in recent times, we have seen that that has not been the case. And I think Patrick did mention that we've got religious leaders nowadays that want to appear as celebrities, forgetting that they are helping the community. Now, one thing we need to understand is, I just forgot the verse, but there is a verse in the Bible that speaks about having enough food in the house of the Lord so that all the needy can be taken care of. And now we see nowadays that mostly it does not happen. Our people are not taken care of. And I think one of the panelists did mention that it's actually affecting our people, basically people of color, because the gospel that is preached nowadays, it's the gospel of prosperity, the gospel of miracles and so forth. So it plays on the desperation of our people, and our people need a lot of saving. So we live in a society whereby we've got broken men and women that are going through the most. We've got men that are depressed. Hence, we have issues of gender-based violence, sexual assault, and all those things. And Elijah just mentioned now that it needs to be appealing to young people as well, because we've got young people that have a lot of ideas to make this religion or the faith community very exciting to everyone else. They've got all the technological skills and all those things. But nowadays, it looks like there is a bit of a disconnect between the faith religion versus the people.
All right. Thank you very much indeed, Jabalani. Let's hear from Kwaila.
Thank you so much, Blaine, and good evening to our speakers and our panelists. My question is basically just to give you a context on the orientation between climate change, environmental and social justice, and what is the role of the church there. And, you know, when we look at climate change as an environmental issue, we also look beyond that and we understand that it's a reflection of how we've also strayed from the principles of care, justice and responsibility.
Right.
And it's also a moral alarm. What we see happening when it comes down to all of these climate impacts, KwaZulu-Natal floods, the droughts across the Eastern Cape, polluted air in our cities, these are not just isolated events. And if we think about faith, leaders and institutions and even our citizens, they have a big responsibility in how we can shape the future for our children and our society as a whole. So my question really, I mean, it's in three parts. First one is, how can faith-based communities be mobilized to lead local responses to climate change and environmental justice? And also, what moral and ethical guidance can religious institutions offer to promote environmental stewardship, particularly when we anchor South Africa's socioeconomic realities? I'll stop there for now.
Goela, thank you very much indeed. I know the Catholic Church, Pope Francis has been very vocal with regards to the issue of environment and climate issues. But it's an important point, Seth Mazibuko, is that it's not only with regards to social ills, it's other issues, destructive issues that affect the daily lives of our people. We've seen it of late. How can that be inculcated when we talk about morals and ethics?
I want to pick up 2 points from our colleagues. Number one, from the MRM, Moral Regeneration Movement side, we speak more of being intergenerational rather than separating the youth there, the elders there. We need more of these intergenerational conversations, dialogues. We need more of, let's not... someone was saying in one of our intergenerational dialogues that most of the young people who want to go to parliament, they just want to go and commit that corruption better than the grannies and the aunties that are there. So we've got to be careful. We've got to be now speaking, how do we become more interlinked than separated? I want to pack that one. And then number two, as part of our moral regeneration has what is called the Charter of Positive Values. Value number 9, protect the environment. And let me announce to this meeting, it might be premature, that the 9 values of moral regeneration are going to be converted now into curriculum, life in schools. And we have just finished off doing that with the curriculum development. Why do we do that? It is because we believe that you start down there to instill these values, to instill this ethical behavior. And let us acknowledge, however, that we might have not done enough at some point with our young people. About 2-3 weeks ago, we were sitting with students, with the institutions of higher learning in the Free State. It was tearing to listen to some of their stories. How when NSFAS has not paid their fees, how do they become prostitutes? How things they do, how do they even say it to us to say that now their parents, talking of family, their parents dump them there. They're only going to see them when they return from universities and college. So all I'm asking is that, yes, there must be I was happy that the issue of environment was raised, because that's another issue that we must raise and talk about it at a high level.
Doctor, the issue of Elijah bringing up youth being excited about institutions like the church, places to go and get morally regenerated. How do you make ethics attractive?
That's actually a difficult one, because some of these things, they become attractive when someone benefits from. And in most cases, when you have to be a moral person, an ethical person, sometimes you lose. And it doesn't make, it doesn't appeal to many people being fair. And really, the entire social fiber in our country, it's very, very corrupt. I mean, someone was saying if you were to cut South Africa, it will just bleed corruption. But in order for people to affect their behavior, they must get something in return. I'm happy that they've spoken about that, and I wish it can be in the curriculums, and people, get a certain certificate for doing this, or get something just to encourage people to really get there. But the most important thing in South Africa to handle the issues of ethical behavior and immorality, it's purely the social economic stability. If we can get that one right, I think the levels of corruption and immorality will definitely go down.
I mean, a lot of people will say that there's no true freedom without economic emancipation.
Exactly.
It's an important point. Patrick, honest and open conversations are needed in order to advance the goal of eradicating issues like gender-based violence, issues like rape and of children. What other conversations we are not having at this moment? You can have all the legislation you want. If it's not implemented and it's not talked about in the right context, it's fruitless.
Yes.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Yes, Blaine. Blaine, for me, we can have all these beautiful laws and policies. And I think the church, the faith-based leaders and spaces are having a very strategic position in our society across the spectrum. I'm telling you, we are lagging from the basic structures like the family strata. You know, we need, as the people of faith, to intensify the efforts in terms of strengthening positive parenting in this country.
Yeah.
And again, it is upon the faith-based leaders to engage fathers to be emotionally connected to the lives of their own children. And the church has got that audience. And how do we take that, Professor Doctor, there at the studio, that forward, in ensuring that in our meetings, in our faith-based spaces, we really are deliberating, engaging men in positive parenting, free from parenting through violence and spanking of children. How do we start that? How do we start inculcating another way of parenting, particularly bringing fathers in their role? Remember, in this country, we've got a huge number of fathers that are actually absent in the lives of their own children. I can complicate that by saying even those that claim to be present are emotionally disconnected in their children. So the church will need to strengthen that positive parenting at all costs.
Mr. Mazibuko?
You know, another dimension that I want to bring into this, and I'll keep on mentioning that it happens to us as African people more than anywhere else. We come from a very terrible history, a very violent history. I was separated from my home and my parents by soldiers arrested at the age of 15. I grew up behind bars on Robben Island. I got my first degree behind bars. And I'm expected to come out there, be a better parent, be a better father. And without that process of healing, and that is where the church is needed. Help me heal so that then I can look after my son, I can look after my daughter. Even thereafter, in the new democracy, then you have a situation where there is no economic justice that is prevailing to cover not only me, but my family, to be able. You go to families that happen to be, you know what? You'll get everything covered for you. But we don't have that. So when I'm just advising, I'm not, as I said, I'm not Mfundisi, but I'm just saying to our pastors, it is not only by word that they are going to heal this nation, it is also by work. It is also by us, by churches, taking the responsibility of healing, even from our past hurts that we've gone through as men, as boys. I see 2, 3 boys out there as part of this conversation. They must be listening to us and saying, this is an intergenerational dialogue. Our fathers come from a hurting system of apartheid, and now they're expected to be better and to make us better fathers. That conversation must start.
I wonder what we can learn, and as you brought it up, in terms of the past and the role of religion being used not only in the anti-apartheid movement, but in the apartheid philosophy as well.
Yes.
What can we learn in the context of this day and age of how to use religion for positive
I'm
change?
happy that you raised that, because actually I always say this, Mfundis, that apartheid was based on the Bible. They misrepresented the Bible to protect themselves. Why can't our Bafundisis do the same? Let's just use the Bible to protect our young ones, to protect our people. And we can take that. I'm happy that this year's Easter happens in April. And that's a year of 1652, when Goedewop, Dromedaries, and Rege landed at the Cape of Good Hope and they took our land. So they should be talking more even on the issues of the land in this country that is now becoming very controversial.
Yeah, but that is you just mentioned the Kairos document that the church used.
Yes.
Which were actually against state theology, church theology, and we advocated for prophetic theology and all that. We use the same tools, as Desmond Tutu will say. But the issue of the family, it's very important for us as the church. Our assessment is that we no longer have your normal family, where you have a father, a mother, and the children. What we have in the church today, it's more mothers and their kids. And when you talk of family there, you talk of a mother with the 2 or 3 or 4 kids. Very few men are coming to church. And we don't know what could be the problem around that. But as a church, we have a story to tell, that even Jesus Christ's family was not a perfect one. The parents wanted to divorce behind doors. And Jesus, at some point, some people told him, actually, you don't belong here, chief. Now, that family was not perfect. Now, if you come with a story that says there are no perfect families, that's the beginning of healing for most of our families. That we make mistakes, but eventually we get there. We become heroes like Jesus Christ.
Right. That's where we'll have to leave it on that note. Thank you so much indeed, Reverend Dr. Seth Mazibuko. Appreciate your time as always. Patrick Godana, value added, no doubt. Hopefully we'll get to a better place as a community, as a nation. Digital audience, happy Easter to you. Thank you very much indeed for your questions. All right, before we go, here's my take. Look, for many, Easter is a time of rebirth, right? It's a time of renewal, of hope, of love. It's also a time when many come to the realization that hate and animus are not agents for good change. It's a time when we have to actively resist the temptation of measuring our worth by trying to prove that others are worthless. Might is not always right. Having power does not automatically make an action morally correct. Often, true strength boils down to our respect for one another and doing the right thing, as you heard today. So, as we continue to reflect as a nation during this Freedom Month, let's not become what we oppose. And that's my take. If you miss anything on this program, then be sure to watch this episode of It's Topical on YouTube, as well as SABC+. If you're watching a repeat of this program, then as always, the news continues. Until next week, my brothers and sisters, take care. Bye-bye.